Dress. It's a ballet dress and leotard pattern from Peekaboo Pattern Shop, but I'm going to be making just the dress today, which is view C. I'm going to try to make it out of stretch velvet. It's my first time working with stretch velvet, so hopefully this goes well. My cutting mat's a little dirty from the velvet. So the pattern pieces you're going to need to cut out for this would be the top bodice pieces, and then this one is the front. And the reason I picked this pattern is I liked the scoop back. So this is the scoop back, and I labeled the points on it. Then you're going to need 2 skirt pieces. There's one skirt piece, a second skirt piece, and 2 sleeves. I'm doing long sleeves, but it does have, I think, long, short, and 3/4 sleeves, I believe. And also there's a flutter sleeve option too. And then also I think it's a neck binding, not a neck band, and that also had 2 points to mark. All right, let's get started. Okay, the first step of the pattern is to take your 2 top bodice pieces and put them right sides together and pin and sew together at the shoulder seams. And this pattern has a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I am going to use my serger to sew these together. If you're using a regular or domestic sewing machine, you're going to want to use a stretch stitch, so a lightning bolt or zigzag, and again a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I went ahead and sewed those together, and then you're going to open it up like this, and we're going to attach the sleeves next. So you're going to want to grab your sleeves, and you're going to fold them in half and mark the center point. You can either mark it with a marking tool like a pen or a pencil. I'm just going to do a very small little snip, and then you're going to put it right sides together. I like to fold the shoulder seam towards the back. I don't know, I just always want them to go the same way, so I always just do the back. Pin that center seam to the shoulder seam, and then we're going to ease the rest of the sleeve in. So I like to pin at the end and then go back and pin from the center, pin or clip to that mark. Okay, and then you're going to do the same for the other side. Again, I like to fold the seam allowance of the shoulder seam down towards the back. Clip my sleeve, and I'll pin that in place. And then again, I'm going to take this to my serger, and using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm going to sew the sleeves to the bodice. So I've attached the sleeve on both sides, and the next step is to sew together the side seams, and then after that we're going to actually hem the sleeves. So what I like to do for hemming, I might be a little odd, is it's a 3/4 inch hem. So I'm going to take my ruler, and on the back side of the sleeve, I'm going to mark a 1.5 inch line. So that's double 3/4 of an inch. And I don't want to iron my stretch velvet. So I'm going to fold this up to that line. I'm just going to try to press it, finger press. And then I'm just going to clip it. And I'll make sure to unclip when I sew up the side seams, but this will just help me to not have to measure the hem in the round, which I'm terrible at. So again, 1.5 inches. My fold line. This is an air erasing marker. You could use an air erasing marker or water soluble or water erasable. Oh, broke a clip. So you're going to fold your shirt or your top bodice, right sides together. I'm going to start in the armpit seam, I guess. And I like to sandwich my seam allowance. So one goes this way, the other side goes the other way. And clip. And then I will clip the bottom of the sleeve, unfolding that hem. Down the sleeve. And then also lining up the bottom of the bodice. Clip that into place and then clip up the side seam. And I'll do that on both sides. And then I'm going to take that to my serger, and using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'll sew that. I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I always start at the end of the sleeve and then go towards the bodice. When I'm done sewing up the side seam, I like to refold that sleeve that I had unfolded for the hem, like that, to my marked line, since it's still there. And I'll clip that in place now so that that's all measured and ready to be hemmed. And make sure you're not sewing your hem yet. So it's unfolded right now. Starting at the end of the sleeve, I'll do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I sewed up those side seams, and I went ahead and refolded where I had unfolded the sleeve so that it's hemmed. And you're going to go ahead and sew this in place, top stitch it. I like to keep my sleeve inside out and then sew it from the inside of the sleeve like this. And I did get a cover stitch machine, but I'm not very good at it yet, so I'm going to go ahead and sew this on my domestic sewing machine. Make sure you use a stretch stitch and a stretch needle or ballpoint needle. I'm going to use my lightning bolt stitch because I think that looks the best top stitching when not using a cover stitch. And since this is folded over 3/4 of an inch, I usually always catch it if I do 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance and use a lightning bolt stitch. And if you're going to be using this as a leotard, you might want to go ahead and do a stretch stitch right at the serger mark in your armpit seams, because I find that if I do leotards, that's where they tend to tear. So just reinforce those armpit seams. I'm not going to do that because we're making a dress. Okay, so I hemmed the sleeves. We're going to put the bodice to the side now, and we're going to grab our 2 skirt pieces and we're going to put them right sides together, and we're going to pin the side seams. Then I'm going to take this to my serger and I'm going to sew it together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I've sewn that together, and so the next step is actually hem the skirt, but I'm just going to prep it and hem it later because I do want to use my cover stitch, and my cover stitch and my serger are the same machine, and I don't want to change my thread setup right now. So it's a 1/2 inch hem, so I'm going to do what I did before, and I'm just going to do a 1 inch mark because again I don't want to iron my fabric. So I'm going to mark 1 inch around my skirt, and I'm going to fold it up to meet that line, and I'm just going to have it pinned for now. So I go all the way around the mark, fold, and clip, and I'm just going to do that all the way around my skirt, and I'm just going to leave it until the end, and then I'm going to hem it at the end. Okay, so I went ahead and clipped a lot of clips around my skirt, and now I'm going to attach my skirt and my bodice together. So right sides together, I'm going to pin the skirt and the bodice together. So I'm going to match up these side seams. I'm going to sandwich them, and I want to make sure this seam is going the same way all the way from the top to the bottom. I'm going to clip. I'm going to do both of those side seams first. And then I'm going to clip this all the way around, and then I'm going to take it to my serger, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to sew this all together. Attached. My side seam on this side came out good. This one kind of got messed up, so maybe I would baste this first to make sure that's lined up and then serge the next time I make it. Now we're going to move on to the neck binding. So we're going to put the short edges together, and we're going to sew these together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So that's sewn together, and I have those points marked. So now we're going to want to mark the center back of our dress. Now remember, the lower part is actually the back. Fabric slipped a little. Now, with the right sides together, we're going to line this up, the back seam, the center back, and then it's at the marked points on the neckband or binding with the shoulder seams. And because earlier I went to the back, the seam allowance to the back, I'm going to do the same thing now. Sure those are lined up. Do the same thing. The other shoulder point. So you're going to stretch to fit this, and you're going to sew this on using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. once that's attached, you want to press the seam allowance away from the garment, so up. And since I don't want to iron this because it's velvet, I'm just going to finger press it, and then you're going to fold the binding down to cover that seam, and you're going to pin in place, and then you're going to top stitch this to attach it. And I think I am going to try and use my cover stitch. A little nervous to mess it up, but okay. So I'm just going to pin this all around, and then I'm going to top stitch this binding, and then I'm also going to top stitch the hem of the skirt, and then it'll be all done. Okay, so I went ahead and hemmed the skirt and the neck binding. I did not use my cover stitch. It did not go well, so I went ahead and used my lightning bolt stitch. On the bottom I did do 2 rows because I did start with the cover stitch, and then I did just one on the neck binding. Sorry, I keep calling it a band. And that's it. It's all done. Super cute. Can't wait to make another one. Thanks for watching.